We will not build a peaceful world by following a negative path. It is not enough to say we must not wage war. It is necessary to love peace and sacrifice for it. We must concentrate not merely on the negative expulsion of war, but on the positive affirmation of peace. We must see that peace represents a sweeter music, a cosmic melody that is far superior to discourse of war. Somehow, we must transform the dynamics of the world power struggle from the negative nuclear arms race, which no one can win, to a positive contest to harness humanity's creative genius for the purpose of making peace and prosperity a reality for all the nations of the world. In short, we must shift the arms race into a peace race. If we have a will and determination to mount such a peaceful offensive, we will unlock hitherto tightly sealed doors of hope and transform our imminent cosmic eulogy into a psalm of creative fulfillment. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. This, no doubt, is a powerful message from an African American, Martin Luther King Jr., to us on Africa Diary today. Yes, it is Africa Diary, your #1 platform where you get all information, news updates, and flashback of events during the week. My name is Ajara Tijani. Welcome. Welcome back once again. This is Africa Diary. The jubilant state leader of Somalia has held a meeting with the United Nations Special Representative to Somalia to discuss the electoral impasse in the country for the past month.
The
meeting, which is a part of the Prime Minister's meetings to find a solution to Somalia's electoral dispute, will focus on the implementation of a recent agreement reached between the opposition and the Somali government in the wake of the 19-year investigation into the incident in February on protesters led by members of the Somali Presidential Candidates Union. The Prime Minister and the Union of Candidates are also expected to discuss the holding of demonstration and the status of the invisible ambassador and the role of the Somali government. In recent meetings with the Union of Candidates, the Prime Minister has reached an agreement that the opposition will hold a peaceful demonstration in Mogadishu, but the candidates who spoke to the media the day before said that President Farmajo is obstructing the process.
The newly appointed UK Ambassador Kate Foster has submitted her credentials to President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo. She will replace Ben Fender, who served in the office for the past few years.
British Ambassador to Somalia Kate Foster has presented her credentials to President of the Republic of Somalia, Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo. Foster arrived in Mogadishu recently, taking over from her predecessor, Ambassador Ben Fender, who will be transferred into another diplomatic service appointment. According to the federal government of Somalia, Foster affirmed to strengthen diplomatic relations between the two countries. She also highlighted that UK will support Somalia in terms of security and economic development. Kate Foster was appointed Her Majesty's Ambassador to the Federal Republic of Somalia in succession in February 2021. She has previously worked in different locations including Africa, She also served as the Deputy Director International Affairs in the National Security Secretariat in the Cabinet Office. Since joining the UK government, she has also held senior roles on the Ebola response, Africa strategy, and as head of Africa Conflict and Humanitarian Unit.
Condolences to all Somali across the world for the loss of the former president of Somalia, Ali Mahdi Mohammed. Now, the President of Federal Republic of Somalia, Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo, has expressed his condolences over the death of former Somali President Ali Mahdi in Kenya and ordered that the national flag be lowered for the 3 days to mourn the death of President Ali Mahdi.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Waxaan tacsi tiiraan leh aan u dirayaa qoyskii, qaraabadii iyo dhammaan ummadda Soomaaliyeed ee uu ka baxay Allah u naxariistee madaxweynihii hore ee dalka marxuum Ali Mahdi Mohammed.
The President of the Federal Republic of Somalia, Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo, has expressed his condolences over the death of former Somali President Ali Mahdi in Kenya and ordered that the national flag be lowered for 3 days to mourn the death of President Ali Mahdi. Ali Mahdi was born in the Lower Shabelle region in 1938 and was 82 years old at the time of his death. He served as President of Somalia from 1991 to 1995, where he was elected President of the USSC for a 2-year term during the preparations for the Alta Conference in Djibouti. The death of President Ali Mahdi in Kenya last night was also mourned by Somali government officials, politicians and lawmakers who all expressed their grief over the death of President Ali Mahdi, and this time the Prime Minister of Somalia has appointed a committee. His cabinet prepares national funeral for the former president. In the meantime, politicians and government officials will be attending the national funeral of the president, and it is noteworthy that at this time, during the COVID-19 pandemic, many Somali community leaders have died from the disease, although it has not yet been confirmed whether the president died of this disease. Meanwhile, the president has been heavily involved in the national affairs of the government since his entry into the political arena, and in recent times, he has been one of the most influential leaders in the country.
The International Organization for Migration, IOM, says there are more than 131,000 people displaced in 39 accessible locations in Ethiopia's Tigray region and neighboring Afar and Amhara, according to its survey.
The data was gathered through a displacement tracking matrix. Its new survey, which gathers and analyzes data on population estimates, vulnerabilities, and the needs of displaced population, IOM said it identified 30,383 displaced households. The IOM says many of the displaced persons, including women and children, are in need of emergency shelter, food, and access to clean and safe drinking water. According to the IOM, the data are not indicators of the total number of persons displaced due to the crisis, but rather represents only the number of internally displaced persons, IDPs, in sites accessible to DTM surveyors. The Northern Tigray region has been the center of conflict between the federal government and its former ruling party, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF. The conflict erupted on 4th November 2020 when Ethiopia's government launched an offensive to oust the TPLF after its fighters captured federal military bases in Tigray.
Still in Ethiopia, the United States ambassador to Ethiopia West demanded full access to the war-hit Tigray region as thousands were killed and hundreds of thousands have been displaced after a government-led military campaign against regional forces in November last year.
The United States ambassador to Ethiopia West demanded full access to the war-hit Tigray region as thousands were killed and hundreds of thousands have been displaced. Last week, the United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken urged Ethiopia to allow an international investigation into alleged atrocities in the northern region. The United States Embassy said in a tweet it was committed to providing life-saving assistance to vulnerable populations in Ethiopia. Access to the region has been limited to aid agencies and foreign bodies. The U.S. visit comes as the United Nations Agency, the IOM, said on Wednesday that more than 131,000 people are displaced in 29 accessible locations in Tigray. The United States said last month that 521,200 people had been displaced and 61,011 had sought safety in eastern Sudan.
The International Court of Justice has announced on Tuesday that it will begin hearing the maritime delimitation disputes between Somalia and Kenya at 3 p.m. on Monday, March 15, at the Peace Palace in The Hague, Netherlands.
The International Court of Justice has announced on Tuesday that it will begin hearing the maritime delimitation dispute between Somalia and Kenya at 3 p.m. on Monday, March 15, at the Peace Palace in Netherlands. The hearings will continue through March 24. In light of COVID-19 pandemic, the court has decided to hold the hearings in hybrid format, participants attending the oral proceedings in person, while others will participate by video link. The general public can follow the hearings through live webcast on court's website and various UN media channels. Somalia brought its case to the International Court of Justice in 2014 after talks with Kenya failed to settle the dispute, but the hearings have been delayed several times at Kenyan request since then. The court will decide who has jurisdiction of the 62,000 square mile triangle in the Indian Ocean, which is believed to be rich in hydrocarbons. The case has contributed to the drastically deteriorated diplomatic relations between the two East African neighbors. With lucrative deals on the line, the issue has also taken international dimension, with the United Kingdom and Norway tacitly supporting Somalia. In contrast, the United States and France have backed Kenya's claim.
Kenyan governors have called for a 30-day ban on political gatherings, even as the Ministry of Health gave the strongest indication of a return to tough measures to curb the spread of coronavirus.
Kenya is already in its third wave. There was the first wave, the second wave, which was around November, but as we had predicted in the Ministry of Health, come the month of March, we may begin to see some surge upwards.
Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe, speaking alongside Council of Governors Chairman Martin Wambora, said Kenya recorded 713 COVID-19 cases just yesterday. Mr. Kagwe said the surge in numbers coming in just 2 days before the lapse of the 60-day restrictions announced by President Uhuru Kenyatta in January call for a possible escalation of the containment measures.
Positivity rate that we are announcing at about 14% is also the highest one since the last phase is sometime in November. We have seen an increase in numbers of those who are on ventilators. We have seen an increase in number on those who need oxygen, and therefore we must continue with vigilance to ensure that these cases do not overrun our healthcare system.
Governors asked Mr. Kenyatta to use his Friday address to ban political events for a month. They said such gatherings and meetings have become COVID-19 super spreaders. Mr. Wambora, who spoke after an extraordinary meeting of the council, said governors are alarmed by heightened political activity, which, if left unchecked, could burden the already struggling healthcare system.
The fight against COVID-19 is being hurt by the political gatherings. In this regard, the council, in consultation with the Minister of Health, is urging the President to halt all political gatherings for the next 30 days in order to flatten the curve.
Giving an indication of what could be the new regulations by the government to be announced on Friday, Mr. Kagwe said Kenya is on a dangerous path if situations witnessed in other countries that have had third waves of the virus are anything to go by. The 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. curfew is in place, but compliance is poor, with some bars operating all night long. The Cabinet Secretary said the Ministry and the National Emergency Task Force on COVID-19 are mapping out possible case scenarios and strategies for the government, all of which would inform the President's decision tomorrow. The return of stringent measures to curb the spread of the deadly virus could mean restrictions of movement and social gatherings.
Ugandan opposition leader Bobi Wine has called on his compatriots to rise up peacefully. Peacefully, he said, and unarmed in protest against President Yoweri Museveni, who has ruled the East African country for nearly 4 decades.
We demand that General Museveni releases all political prisoners with immediate effect.
Ugandan opposition leader Bobi Wine has called on his compatriots to rise up peacefully and unarmed in protest against President Yoweri Museveni, who has ruled the East African country for nearly 4 decades. Museveni won a 6th term in office in January with 58% of the vote. His main rival, Bobi Wine, who came second with 35%, decried the election as rigged. However, singer-turned-lawmaker claimed he was the winner of the election with 54% of the votes. In his speech, Wine highlighted human rights violations and election irregularities before, during and after the January 14 votes. He said these include arrest and detention of NUP members, torture and brutality used against arrested Ugandans, and the refusal by the Supreme Court to accept over 200 affidavits, which Wine says contain critical evidence to prove election fraud against Museveni. It is for these reasons that Wine called on Ugandans to come out and protest.
We demand that General Museveni releases all political prisoners with immediate effect. It is not a crime to support somebody. If it was a crime, there shouldn't have been presidential elections. But all of you remember that my entire campaign team was arrested and they are languishing in prison.
In response to the call for protest, police have put all officers on standby, telling them to enhance their visibility, enforce an ongoing curfew, and set up checkpoints to monitor people's movement, especially the youth. The Ugandan police said further that it will not hesitate to arrest and charge in court of law anyone found participating in the illegal protest and disruption. Protests in Uganda have taken brutal dimensions before and during the last election. Demonstrations against Wine's arrest in November during the election campaign were brutally dispersed by security forces, leading to the death of 54 people. Kamil Sadiq, CBA TV.
Still in Uganda, Uganda on Wednesday rolled out the first phase of nationwide vaccination against COVID-19 as the country received a second batch of 100,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccines on March 7 from the government of India as a donation.
Uganda on Wednesday has rolled out the first phase of a nationwide vaccination against COVID-19. The country received a second batch of 100,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine on March 7 from the government of India as a donation to add on to the initial acquisition of 864,000 doses through the COVID-19 Vaccine Global Access Facility on March 5. Minister of Health Jane Ruth Aseng received her jab in front of media cameras at Mulago Hospital in Kampala, confirming that the East African country would be administering the AstraZeneca vaccines.
Uganda now joins the rest of the world in the race to vaccinate at least 49.6% of its population, including the refugees.
Health workers have received the AstraZeneca jabs as part of a phased rollout. The minister noted that Uganda aims to vaccinate at least 49.6% of its population of 21,936,011 with COVID-19 vaccines in different phases. Each phase is planned to cover 20% of the target population, which is about 4.387 million people. The country's vaccination drive will prioritize essential workers, starting with healthcare workers, followed by teachers and those in high-risk groups, including the elderly. Among priority recipients of the jab will be health workers employed at public hospitals, followed by those in private not-for-profit and their counterpart working for profit private health facilities. At a pre-launch and media training session in Kampala yesterday, Dr. Alfred Driwali said mass vaccination will prevent and reduce severe COVID-19 disease and death, sustain national health system response, and restore health and productivity of the Ugandan societies and the economy.
First, as a doctor, I would like to say that vaccines are safe, they are effective, and they are free in our country. For me as an individual, I had an opportunity to go through the COVID experience of seeing my colleagues getting sick, and some of them not making it. So I feel that this is a very good step for me to get well.
Austria on Sunday suspended the use of AstraZeneca vaccines, the type Uganda has received from COVAX, to allow investigations from the death of one person and serious illness of another after receiving the jabs.
Good news from there. Most African countries have already received the COVID-19 vaccines. How far will that go? We'll get to know, maybe in our subsequent bulletin. And from Northern Africa, Libya's Prime Minister-designate expressed support for the maritime agreement signed between Turkey and the former UN-backed government based in Tripoli, saying it serves the country's economic best interests.
Abdul Hamid Dbeibah made the comment a day before being confirmed as Libya's Prime Minister. Under the deal with Turkey, Libya has acquired a good share of the gas field that it did not possess, he said, but added that Parliament is the one who will approve it. Dbeibah noted he couldn't say anything about the country's security agreement with Turkey, leaving decisions about those to parliamentarians. Dbeibah's government, which replaces two rival administrations, one based in countries east and another in the west, that have been ruling Libya for years, was approved by 132 lawmakers on Wednesday. Oil-rich Libya was plunged into chaos after a 2011 NATO-backed uprising toppled and killed longtime dictator Muammar Gaddafi. The country has been divided between two governments, one in the east and another in the west, each backed by a vast array of militias as well as foreign powers.
Right about now, we are in Egypt. Egypt hopes to resume talks soon with Ethiopia over the controversial megadam to reach an agreement that serves the interests of the three parties involved in the dispute, a foreign minister said.
Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry said his country had been communicating with Ethiopia over the Grand Renaissance Dam, which Cairo fears it will significantly cut its crucial water supplies from the River Nile. No talks on the matter were made outside the framework of the African Union (AU). Shoukry was cited by local daily Al-Mashri al-Yom. The AU has been mediating the talks between Egypt, Sudan and Ethiopia. Egypt and Sudan have voiced their concern about the possible threats posed by the dam and how it could negatively affect their water share if Ethiopia abstained from signing a binding and legal agreement on the dam operation and the process of filling its reservoir.
At least one person had died and two students have been injured in clashes between South African university students and police at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg.
Without warning, they launched a stunt grenade. After launching the stunt grenade, they would then fire rubber bullets. In the midst of firing rubber bullets, one of our colleagues was shot dead. And we are here at this point to honor and mourn the passing of that colleague.
The sporadic protest began in early January over the alleged exclusion of some students by a government-sponsored tuition aid scheme. Students are demanding that the university allow all students with outstanding debt to register for the 2021 academic year. Students vowed to continue protesting against the financial exclusion. The school authorities, however, said that if it continues to accept students who have historical debt, the institution will become financially unstable. The university says it owed 1 billion South African rand in outstanding fees accumulated over the past 7 years. While the debt of the university is rising, students are demanding that those who owe the university up to 150,000 rand in fees should be allowed to register for the new academic year. On Monday, the Minister for Higher Education announced that the government-funded National Student Financial Aid Scheme, which provides study loans to poor students, is facing a financial funding shortfall. He cited the country's economic downturn amid the COVID-19 pandemic among the reasons for the shortage of funds. Kamel Sadiq, CBA TV.
Let's go for the African Tomapep right on the program. You know what I'm talking about? The Proverbs from African soil. We hope you enjoyed that and you've learned one or two things. That's one of the wisdom from Africa. A lot more are on the way. If you have any comments or any suggestion, do drop the comments below on our Facebook page or YouTube, and be rest assured we'll do justice to it. Africa Diary comes to you from CBA TV, and it's a promise. We'll come here same time, same station, God's will, same presenter. My name is Ajara Tijani. From everyone here, especially my operator, special thanks to you, and to you, my esteemed viewer. I love you. Bye for now.